Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Prianti Wakhadiningrum and I'm from EED A5 class. First of all, let's say thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala who has given us mercy and blessings, and then forget our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam by saying Allahumma sholli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. So today I will explain about tests in Cohen book, Part 4, Chapter 19. Tests by Louis Cohen, Lauren Manion, and Kate Morrison. In tests, researchers have at their disposal a powerful method of data collection, an impressive array of tests for gathering data of a numerical rather than verbal kind. In considering testing for gathering research data, several issues need to be borne in mind, not the least of which is why tests are being used at all. First, what are we testing? For example, achievement, aptitude, attitude, personality, intelligence, social adjustment. Are we dealing with parametric or non-parametric tests? Are they norm referenced or criterion referenced? Are they available commercially for researchers to use, or will researchers have to develop home-produced tests? Do the test scores derive from a pre-test and post-test in the experimental method? Are they group or individual tests? Do they involve self-reporting or are they administrative tests? So, what are we testing? There is a myriad of tests to cover all aspects of a student's life and for all ages, such as young children to all adults. For example, aptitude, attainment, personality, social adjustment, attitudes and values, stress and burnout, performance, projective tests, potential ability, achievement, diagnosis of difficulties, intelligence, verbal and nonverbal reasoning, higher order thinking, performance in school subjects, introversion and extraversion, self-esteem, locus of control, depression and anxiety, reading readiness, university entrance tests, interest inventories, language proficiency tests, motivation and interest, sensory and perceptual tests, special abilities and disabilities, and many others. Parametric and non-parametric tests. There is a normal curve of distribution of scores in the population. The bell-shaped symmetry of the Gaussian curve of distribution seen. For example, in standardized scores of IQ or the measurement of people's height or the distribution of achievement on reading tests in the population as a whole. There are continuous and equal intervals between the test scores and with tests that have a true zero. The opportunity for a score of, say, 80% to be double that of 40%. This differs from the original scaling of rating scales discussed earlier in the connection with questionnaire design, where equal intervals between each score could not be assumed. Norm reference, criterion reference, and domain reference tests. A norm reference test compares students' achievements relative to other students' achievements. For example, a national test of mathematical performance or a test of intelligence which has been standardized on a large and representative sample of students between the ages of 6 and 16. A criterion reference test does not compare student with student, but rather requires the students to fulfill a given set of a criteria, a predefined and absolute standard or outcome. Commercially produced tests and researcher-produced tests. There should be, they are objective, they have been piloted and refined, they have been standardized across a named population, such as region of the country, the whole country, a particular age group, or various age groups, so that they represent a wide population. They declare how reliable and valid they are, mentioned in the statistical details which are usually contained in the manual of instruction for administering the test. And they tend to be parametric tests, hence enabling sophisticated statistics to be calculated. They come complete with instructions for administration. They are often straightforward and quick to administer and to mark. Guides to the interpretation of the data are usually included in the manual. Researchers are spared the task of having the device, pilot and refine their own tests. Constructing a test. The purposes of the test for answering evaluation questions and ensuring that it tests what is supposed to be testing. For example, the achievement of the objectives of a piece of a curriculum. The type of test. For example, diagnostic, achievement, aptitude, criterion reference, and norm reference. The objectives of the test cast in very specific terms so that the content of the test items can be seen to relate to specific objectives of a program or curriculum. The content of the test, what is being tested, and what the test items are. The construction of the test involving item analysis in order to clarify the item discriminability and item difficulty of the test. The format of the test, its layout, instruction, method of working, and of completion. For example, oral instruction to clarify what students will need to write, or a written set of instruction to introduce a particular piece of work. The nature of the piloting of the test, the validity and the reliability of the test, the provision of a manual of instructions for the administration, marking, and data treatment of. In planning a test can proceed thus. First, identify the purpose of the test. Second, identify the test specifications. The third, select the contents of the test. The fourth, consider the form of the test. Fifth, write the test item. Sixth, consider the layout of the test. Seventh, consider the timing of the test. And the last is plan the scoring of the test. Identify the purposes of the test. The purposes of the test are several. For example, to diagnose a student's strengths, weaknesses, and difficulties, to measure achievement, to measure aptitude and potential, to identify readiness for a program. Gronlund and Lin in 1990 termed this placement testing, and it is usually in the form of pretest, normally designed to discover whether students have the essential prerequisites to begin a program, for example, in terms of knowledge, skill, understanding. These types of tests occur at different stages. Identify the test specification. Which program objectives and students' learning outcomes will be addressed, which content areas will be addressed, the relative weightings, balance, and coverage of items, the total number of items in the test, the number of questions required to address a particular element of a program or learning outcomes, and the last is the exact items in the test. To ensure validity in the test, it is essential to ensure that the objectives of the test are fairly addressed in the test items. Objectives, it is argued in Major 1962, Wiles and Bondi 1984, should be specific and be expressed with an appropriate degree of precision. Represent intended learning outcomes. Identify the actual and observable behavior that will then demonstrate achievement. Include an active verb and be unitary or focusing on one item per objective. Select the contents of the test. The suitability of the format of each item for the learning objective and appropriateness, the ability of each item to enable students to demonstrate their performance of the learning objective and relevance. The clarity of the test for each item, the straightforwardness of the task, the unambiguity of the outcome of each item, and agreement on what the outcome should be, the cultural fairness of each item, the independence of each item, such as where the influence of other items of the test is minimal and where successful completion of one item means not dependent on successful completion of another. The adequacy of coverage of each, such as learning, objective by the items of the test. The test will need to address the intended and unintended clues and cues that might be provided in it. For example, in Morris et al. 1987, the number of blanks might indicate the number of words required. The number of dots might indicate the number of letters required. The length of blanks might indicate the length of response required. The space left for completion will give cues about how much to write. Blanks in different parts of a sentence will be assisted by the reader having read the other parts of the sentence. Anaphoric and cataphoric reading cues. Consider the timing of the test. The timing refers to two areas: when the test will take place, the day of the week, month, time of day, and the time allowances to be given to the test and its component items. With regard to the former, in part this is a matter of reliability, for the time of day or week, etc., might influence how alert, motivated, and or capable students might be. Plan the scoring of the test. It enables partial completion of the task to be recognized. Students gain marks in proportion to how much the task they have completed successfully. It enables students to compensate for doing badly in some parts of a task by doing well in other parts of the task. It enables weightings to be made explicit to the students. It enables the rewards for successful completion of parts of a test to reflect considerations such as the length of the item, the time required to complete it, its level of difficulty, its level of importance. It facilitates moderation because it is clear and specific. It enables comparisons to be made across groups by item. It enables reliability indices to be calculated. Scores can be aggregated and converted into grades straightforwardly. Dividing a pretest and posttest. The pretest may have questions which differ in form of wording from the posttest, though the two tests must test the same content. They will be alternate forms of a test for the same groups. The pretest must be the same for the control and experimental groups. The posttest must be the same for both groups. Care must be taken in the construction of a posttest to avoid making the test easier to complete by one group than another. The level of difficulty must be the same in both tests. Reliability and validity of tests. Suffice it here to say that reliability concerns the degree of confidence that can be placed in the results and the data, which is often a matter of statistical calculation and subsequent test redesigning. Validity, on the other hand, concerns the content, the extent to which the test tests what is supposed to test. This devolves on content, construct, phase, criterion-related, and concurrent validity. Ethical issues in preparing for tests. Ensuring coverage among other program, contents and objectives of the objectives and program that will be tested. Restricting the coverage of the program content and objectives to only those that will be tested. Preparing students with exam technique. Practicing with past or similar papers, directly matching the teaching to specific test items, where each piece of teaching and contents is the same as each test item. Practicing on an exactly parallel form of the test, telling students in advance what will appear on the test. Practicing on and preparing the identical test itself, such as giving out test papers in advance without teacher input. Practicing on and preparing the identical test itself, such as giving out with the teacher working through the items may be providing sample answer. Computerized adaptive testing. Computerized adaptive testing, Weiner 1919, Aiken 2003, is the decision on which particular test items to administer, which based on the subject's responses to previous items. It is particularly useful for large-scale testing, where a wide range of ability can be expected. Here, a test must be devised that enables the tester to cover this wide range of ability. Hence, it must include some easy to some difficult items. Too easy and it does not enable a range of high ability to be charted. Test is simply getting all the answer right. Too difficult and it does not enable a range of low ability to be charted. Test is simply getting all the answer wrong. Okay, I think that's all from my explanation in text book by Cohen. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.